It's rock and roll.
Welcome to the Look, It's Rock and Roll podcast. I'm your host, Julian. We are back with a W.A.S.P episode. I mean, it feels like it's been a year, and I guess it has been a year since Bill and Andy and I got together to pontificate about the mighty W.A.S.P. But you know what? Now we're towards the end of the year. We've had the arena of pleasure, of seeing Blackie Lawless and crew live in concert for W.A.S.P's 40th anniversary tour. Their long-awaited return to the U.S. shores where they've not been able to perform in over a decade. And we've all been there. I went to Anaheim at the beginning of the tour, and just this past weekend, the Regency in San Francisco. Bill, what show did you get to?
I was muted. Sorry about that.
It's been that long that you've forgotten how to operate the microphone.
Yeah. Actually, that's the funny thing is, and I don't want to break it up too bad, but I was in a town called Versailles. Okay. And Versailles is in Darke County, Ohio. It's just north of Greenville. And if you remember, it was actually called, the French pronunciation is Versailles. And I have something sticking to my lip that's driving me nuts. But the Treaty of Greenville was signed between what is now Greenville, Ohio, and Versailles. And Ohioans call it Versailles. So, and I don't want to jump ahead too far, but John Bush came out and said, "How you doing, Versailles?" Right? And Blackie came out and said, "Versailles, how are you?" So he went with the more classic language of it. But yeah, really, I saw it, and Versailles is a small community, and I mean a small community. It's much smaller than Dayton. It's way smaller than Cincinnati. It is literally out in the middle of nowhere, about 30 miles off of a federal highway. But they're bringing bands in, so I'm going to go back.
Hell yeah.
Now your turn, Andy.
Andy, what shows did you see?
I went to Boston, and actually in Boston, basically they call it Big Night Live. I had never been there, and I don't know how new it is, so it must be kind of new. I've never even heard of it, but it's attached to the, they call it the TD Garden, but yeah, right down in Boston. And then the day, Wednesday, it was in Boston, and then on Friday, Kim and I went to Long Island, so a place called Paramount in Long Island that I had never been to either, but yeah. So that was those are the two places I went to. So
awesome. So between the five of us, we've seen 5 shows, all different parts of the tour. When was Versailles? I have class.
Versailles was December 1st.
Okay, so
it was the day after Columbus.
Yeah, I'm with Blackie on that. I'd always slip into the French pronunciation, so apologies to any Ohioans who are offended by that. So when we did our last episode, the tour had just been announced, and Blackie was doing some press and PR, hyping it up as the 40th anniversary, the return to the beginning, and we were all going, on about what songs we wanted to hear and what we were hoping for in the tour. So now that we've seen it and seen basically that it is a return to the beginning in the sense that it goes all the way back to Animal, which is the musical beginning of W.A.S.P. So from that perspective, it's very much back to the beginning. But in terms of what I guess a lot of people have been bitching about online and in forums, is that obviously there was no execution of a nun. There was no torch flambe of a flaming W.A.S.P logo. There was no meat being thrown out into the audience. But was anyone actually expecting any of that shit in 2022 when liability and, if you remember, the station fire, and the size of some of these venues, do you have any concept as to what would happen if a band tried to go and set things on fire in a 900 capacity venue or throw meat at the audience? You'd have all these vegans going, well, maybe not.
I would have went for a video of the flaming logo. The flaming logo is classic as it gets. And they had a big enough, and can everybody hear me okay? Because I sound a little quiet in my headphones.
No, you
guys hear
sound,
me all right?
You sound fine to me.
Right on. Well, and I would have went for a video of it, but and I understand with this thing with the station and all of that, and really it wouldn't have happened because the place I was at was a pretty low ceilinged place. But yeah, I mean, at least a video image of it, and it may have came up somewhere, but it came up really quick if it did. So
Yeah, I seem to
but as
remember
far
there
as
being a flaming logo image at some point. I don't remember at what point during the show, and I was sober both shows. I deliberately didn't booze it up because I wanted to enjoy both of these. But yeah, you're right. It'd be nice to have it a little bit more prominent and obvious as well, I guess.
yeah, and
Maybe like at the beginning, like the intro, have the flaming, the logo and the flaming when they first come out. That would be, that would hit the money spot. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of when they originally did it. They talk about that true to the shore. Even nowadays, that would be so illegal. Even back then, that they don't know how they got away with that too, because the seals are so low and everything's so low. They're lucky they didn't. They're lucky it wasn't a tragedy at that, like the station. You know
Well,
what I mean?
they were all doing that back in the day. I mean, it was insane what was going on the Strip and in the Los Angeles area with Motley Crue and spraying lighter fluid over, what was it, Nicky or Mick, and lighting them up, and Blackie and all the shenanigans that they got up to. But let's talk about that show intro as well. It starts whenever you go, and this is kind of informational for those who haven't been to any of the shows yet. If you hear the end by the door starting, get your ass
better
in
have
there,
your ass in line
because it is starting. I love the cacophonous intro that starts with that and then builds into W.A.S.P songs, segueing, getting louder and louder, rising up, and then in they come. Andy, intro. Does it get your inner animal released?
I've heard it before, so I know what it's going to happen, but I'm like, not really in a way, because I don't understand. Maybe there's something behind the whole Doors thing. I don't get it. But I also find it kind of weird that they're playing W.A.S.P songs that you might hear or might not hear, which I think is weird because usually bands don't do that. I started hearing like the Electric Circus, and I'm like, yes, I want to hear that anyways, but I really don't want to hear it for the intro kind of thing unless they're actually going to play it. So I think that's just me. Maybe it's a psychological thing. And like some people around me, and they're like standing there going, what is this? And I'm like, when you hear the alarms, and that was the alarms were for The Last Command. If anybody remembers, the helicopters, that was kind of like the intro for The Last Command. But some people standing around like, why? What's up with that? And I'm like, because it's from The Last Command. So you could tell the diehards, like the real diehards, big, deep diehards, knew what some of the stuff was about. But for me, no, I don't know. I wish it would change a little bit somehow. I don't know. I mean, I even heard like "Screaming Till You Like It." I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, cool. And what happens? It doesn't get played in the set. Woo,
Right.
So
Thanks for the spoiler.
No,
well, we got it. You didn't hear it? They didn't play it at your show? Because we got it. No, I'm kidding.
Did
What about you, Bill?
Oh,
How's the intro? Because obviously we didn't go to shows, previously in 2010, so, or at least I didn't, so it was all new to me.
Well, and that's one thing, having grown up going to concerts as a teen and now as approaching senior citizenship, it seemed like it was always better to see the band rush the stage. You're listening to, and that's the thing is, they did have the intro music and all that stuff, but they kind of just strolled out and, walked over and got in place and whatever. And it just didn't seem like there was no kaboom to take off. I mean, you didn't need a physical concussion or something like that, but it just seemed like they just came out and started playing. But I mean, I was just so used to hearing, something more impactful. And Armored Saint was a little more impactful. They kind of came out and, okay, I didn't know how much we were going to talk about Armored Saint, but I've become an Armored Saint fan this year. That I overlooked it for years. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bang on my table. But when we had a guy had told us 5 minutes before, I had heard about Jason McMaster filling in for John Bush. like a week before. I didn't know how many shows he played. I didn't know when he started or when he stopped. But then the guy tells us before the show, he goes, "Oh, you know, John Bush ain't going to be here." And it's like, "What do you mean John Bush ain't going to be here?" He goes, "No, Jason McMaster's still singing with them." And it's kind of like, "Oh, all right." You know, the one time I get to see Armored Saint and John Bush isn't with them. So I was kind of down on it. But when I saw that little bald head trek out onto the stage, it was just like kaboom. And that was almost the explosion that W.A.S.P needed when they hit the stage. Was that big surprise of knowing that John Bush was there. And, you know, everybody went nuts the minute he hit the stage. But it was just seemed like the opening of the show just kind of it's kind of meh, really.
Okay, so before we get into more of the W.A.S.P chat, let's talk about Armored Saint a little bit. Andy, any love for Armored Saint from you, or did you catch them at both shows, or did you skip them?
No, well, I actually did see them, and I have to be honest, I never saw Armored Saint. That was the very first time I ever seen Armored Saint. They never came around my area that I know of, so I didn't really catch it. I didn't back in those days. I never really saw them, and then somebody came up to me and said, "This other guy's gonna sing," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't really think about it, but they weren't that bad. Actually, I was kind of impressed by it. I was like, "Wow, these guys aren't that bad." Because sometimes you get the name. You're like, "Oh, the name," and you're thinking this is gonna be weird or something, or what I mean. It's like Kiss thing or a W.A.S.P thing. You're like, "Oh, but look at W.A.S.P. They've done some killer ballads." You know what I'm saying? So it's like. But they were actually really good, and like Bill said, I don't know when the new guy started, but when they were in Boston, he sang. But when I got to the next show, the Bush guy came out. They both sang together on that most popular song they heard. I forgot him, but I did at the
Chemical
end.
Euphoria, March of the Saint.
Thank you.
March of the Saint, yeah.
Yeah, they were trading vocals back and forth on the New York show, but then Boston was the full, So, but actually, I was kind of impressed. They were pretty good, man. I have to say, it wasn't like that. Sometimes you go see opening band, you're like, oh my god, this is just, terrible. You know what I mean? Just so awful. But they actually were really into it. They would get the crowd very motivated. There were a lot of Armored Saint fans there too, also. So there were Armored Saint / W.A.S.P fans. So there was no that. Oh, my band's better than your band kind of crap stuff. It was pretty cool all the way around. So you can see the mutual respect for both bands for each other and stuff and the fans. Very cool. So I didn't mind it, actually. I didn't think it was bad at all. Yeah. So
no,
it was
mutual respect and history that goes back 40 years. They played on the same bill 40 years ago, nearly to the day of the Anaheim show. So, I haven't listened to Armored Saint since 1986. I'm aware of them, or John Bush, and I skipped his tenure in Anthrax as well. I'm aware of the first album, or is it the second album? Whichever one Michael James Jackson did. Because
that's March of the Saint. That's the first one.
Yeah, because he went to work with Armored Saint rather than, finish working on Animalize with Kiss.
I take it back. That's the second one because they did an EP they did an album independently on Metal Blade, and then the first major label one.
Right, so Chrysalis, they were on, I believe,
yeah.
and that album's really good. So one of the things I liked is that they have a common history, or a history together. So it was great to see a band that's highly respected in Southern California around that 40th anniversary. Unfortunately, the sound mix was absolutely fucking awful in Anaheim. It was so tinny and shrill. It was like being attacked by 1,000 killer wasps. Ironic for the band that they were opening for. But I threw all the songs in the set into a Spotify playlist afterwards, and it just reminded me how good they are as a band. They really are a fantastic opening act, and really fun. So I only caught part of the set in San Francisco because I was hanging out front chatting with some friends. But again, really cool. All right, so let's get back to W.A.S.P.
Let me squeak in. I never did get to say that Armored Saint was good from beginning to end. I was really impressed with them. Well played. And then I'll lead us back into W.A.S.P. saying, I know that there was merch issues for you guys having VIPs, But there was merch issues for GAs too, because when we got to the venue, there was a line for merch, but nobody was selling. I mean, nobody. They had two tables and nobody was selling nothing.
Yeah, because you know why? Because
No.
the same guy who's taking the photos for the VIP is the same guy who sells the merch. No, I'm not lying.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. So he's the same guy that sells the merch behind the booth. So when we get into the merch stuff,
let's do the merch stuff right now while we're talking about it. Anaheim, there was no merch. Because they'd sold it out in Vegas the night before and hadn't been able to, things were still coming together on the tour with merchandising, provisioning and all the business and transport side of that. Just an absolute nightmare. So I think they had smalls. Everyone's in there in line. Everyone wants W.A.S.P shit. And they get up there. They're like, they've only got baby sizes. You got all these fat middle-aged guys who, and you still couldn't get it at other shows. So I gotta say this because I have been following all the stuff on the official socials. They got a online store up and running in short time. I placed an order for a W.A.S.P shirt because I wanted one for the VIP in San Francisco on November the 15th. I was told it was expected to ship the first week of December. I'm like, cool. That's great. I get a notification on November 29th that it shipped. It's in my hands December the 6th. Had communication all along the way. They go up to 5X online. You're only going to be able to get 2X at shows. So they solved a problem and made it possible for people who aren't able to attend the shows to get stuff. And more importantly, it's being handled respectfully. It arrived in great shape, real fast, and it's good quality. So I got to give them a hand for that because I ended up buying an Armored Saint shirt. I mean, fortunately, I enjoyed the set enough to do that at Anaheim because that's all there was. There was no W.A.S.P stuff. So, the merch has been an issue.
And that's important that you've said that because if anybody in the circle happens to hear this, that's impressive. Because we've been dealing with a particular band that all three of us are fans on that you can't get merch from, or even when you pre-order it 6 months ahead of time. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, they got it, hats off to the W.A.S.P gang for getting an issue solved. And I'm not shilling. I'm telling you my honest to God experience of I wanted a shirt, I got my shirt. It was under-promised and over-delivered in that it arrived and shipped sooner than was expected to, and I was happy that I was at the W.A.S.P VIP wearing a W.A.S.P shirt. Now
you got the one that Andy's wearing now, right?
That's right, yeah.
Same one. Well, I'm going to go order my 3X because they didn't have a 2X at the show. I'm going to order my 3X as soon as we're done.
Yeah, and it was also good for the VIP in San Francisco. They let us in, and we're jumping around a little bit from where I'd originally intended to go, but it just seems to be working out that way. They let us into the VIP. Everyone was there on time. Everything went as expected. Everyone met up on time. The organizer came out, grabbed everyone, scanned our IDs, and gave us our laminates, and in we went and onto the merch stand where they were all ready to go with all our names, and each one of us have a credit for the merch stand. So a bunch of people got their shirts and put them on right then and there. I was like, oh crap. I'd forgotten about that. So I ended up with another shirt, so
right on.
It was really good. And they had up to 2X that day, and they were ready to go and to sell, and they took care of everyone. Apart from the slowpokes in the line who hum and haw over, is this the right one for me? Just buy a fucking shirt and let's get on with the rest of it.
Take your T-shirt and fucking beat it.
Yeah.
Yahoo!
Well, Julian, they must, by the time they got to your show near the end of the tour, they must have fixed all that, because when I got in the VIP, all the VIPs were walking by the merch going, we're all drooling, saying, man, we want. And they're like, no, you can't have it yet. We're like, come on, man, just let us buy it now. There's nobody in the building. Let's get it now. And then, people would probably put them on and then done the meet and greet, the full thing with Blackie and everybody. But we didn't. and then by the time we can get into that afterwards. But I will say this about the merch thing: I didn't know how much merch was going to be there. As some of you know, that the three of us love Kiss too. And I went on the Kiss cruise like 2 weeks before I saw the Wash show, so I did nothing online. I didn't know anything about the set list, the T-shirts, or any of the merch. I looked at nothing, man. I did the full out checkout, man, and it worked because I wanted to go into this whole thing totally blank, not seeing anything. I will say this about the merch stuff: I find it kind of strange that why does there's nothing else of the rest of the band? If it's a band, put at least have the rest of the guys on at least one shirt. Why is it just Blackie on the shirt? I know it's his thing, it's his basically company, but or band or whatever you call it. He owns the rights and stuff. But why can't they just put one shirt with the rest of the guys on it? I don't understand that. That's one thing I kind of scratch my head, because Mike Dude has been in with W.A.S.P now for a long time, and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of weird on that way. Also, when I was there at the VIP, walking out of the VIP, when we were all like hanging around, I met some guy named Joe Carbone in line, because we're all like, oh my God, we're in line trying to get merch. We got up to the merch because we didn't even know what shirts were going to be left, because the lines were I'm sorry, but the tour got delayed. I know you said it was being great online. Maybe they are on some, but they had a delay. So this thing has been waiting to come. And W.A.S.P hasn't been around, or Blackie hasn't been around in 10 years. People are going to be savages wanting all the merch. So I think they might have had a little bit more merch out there. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, you get up there and like, oh my God, they don't have my size. So what do? You pretty much have been waiting in line for 45, 50 minutes. And I'm telling you, the lines were insane at both shows I went. I mean, all night long, just long, and people are praying. And then by the time I got there, like I said, I met some guy named Joe Carbone, and I didn't open it, but the Kiss, I don't know if you saw him, the Kiss flag. Kiss flag, Jesus. The W.A.S.P flag, the 40th anniversary.
Wrong
These things were
podcast, buddy.
like, yeah. These things were like selling like crazy, and they were gone. And I met this guy online, right there standing in line, and I said, well, I'm going to a show in Huntington, New York in like 2 days. If they have one, I'll buy one for you, and I'll mail it to you. And the guy's looking at me, he goes, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you just met me. You have no idea who I am, or, if somebody will steal something for you. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Just have this good vibe about you. And they said, if I go down the show and they have them, bingo. So they had them down there. So I grabbed one for him and one for him. He paid me the exact amount. I didn't rip them off. They were $25. It cost like $5 a ship. I said, here you go. And he was all happy than anything I knew. So, I'm glad they made up for the merchandise online, because but I just wish they had more variety of stuff too. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm like a hat. I don't know. Did they have a hat?
No, you got to get Gene Simmons out of your head, man, because I thought it was a concise amount of merch. So you got Wild Child, you've got the W.A.S.P 40, you've got the flag. One thing that people in the merch lines were complaining about, I didn't get the pin. We're complaining about were no posters. So
yeah, okay, but stop thinking like Simmons then.
And and the one thing I've really mentioned is no tour book. I would love a tour book. Now they've got photos, because I know they've had photogs at these shows. I would love to see a tour book celebrating the 40 years of W.A.S.P with a commentary from Blackie Lawless of each song in the set, even if there are some songs that come and go, of why those songs are in the 40th anniversary set to him, for him to connect W.A.S.P 40 with those songs and why those are there, and then a comment from each year or album going through. And that's an easy 25, 30 page, tour book. Now, the downside is that those do cost money to design, to print, and there are, Andy, still supply chain problems, which is why I'm not surprised that things don't make it to every show in the quantities that we want. So, yeah, we're still living in a really fucked up world.
Yeah, I understand that, but again, that's another thing that kills me too, is a tour book. Why, they could have taken photos 2 years ago. They've had 2 years because they postponed this, so they could have set up the stage, taken the photos like every other band does.
Well, they could have taken photos in Europe.
Yeah, or anywhere. It didn't matter. But I never understand that. Wasp has never really had a tour books. They had the Electric Circus one, which, you know, yeah. So there hasn't been like a lot of them out there. They've had all these tours for all these years, but not a lot of tour books.
Yeah, but it does cost money, and a lot of the guys who took the photos back in the day are really expensive to license. So they're every single thing that goes into a tour book, from the ink to the photos to the text to the copy to the design to the printing, has a line item on a spreadsheet, and it can get expensive pretty quick. And
the lead time. That's the thing about it is lead times are very important in printing. Because when we were reading stuff in magazines 30 years ago, we were reading stuff that was 4 months old, because they were doing everything they were preparing for wasn't going to come out for another 3 to 4 months. So if they were trying, I don't think they would have had the time to process stuff from Europe before the American tour started.
Do some buttons as well. There you go. You've done pins. Do some buttons.
Buttons are a simple machine, and they're done. But yeah.
Well,
and at the VIP, we did get picks, and everyone likes. I actually gave one of mine out to. I was having a beer with a guy, and he bought me a beer. I'm like, here, have a pick. I'm not taking a free beer off you. But that sort of stuff. Some of the other merch. Achilles. Maybe he should be selling his drum head every night, and who knows? But that gets a bit into the Kiss realm of over merch. So I don't know. It's going to be different for everything. I've got 2 T-shirts. Andy's got his stuff, and Bill's going to be ordering his stuff. So I would think we're all pretty happy. End of the day.
It's not like I'm not happy. I just figured.
You want more.
It's the mindset. It's just, of course we do. We want more. It's been 10 years.
You're used to Simmons saying, "Where's your wallet?" and you saying, "Here's my money."
Come on, they're not the only ones. Come on, probably like 98% of the bands would be doing the same thing. The more they merch sell. I don't know. I would love the tour book, like you, a poster too. A poster would have been killer too. If they sold a poster with all of them signed it, man. Right, that'd be killer. So I guess if they see this in the long run, wink, wink, they could do it on the next round.
Yeah, or they don't want it all just getting thrown up onto eBay. There's so much of that goes on, but there's a lot more to business than our fan perspective, and we'll never know all the ins and outs that go into making a decision to what the menu items are on the merch thing. So. Again, I'm happy that I found a couple of shirts that I'm pleased with. The tour book's the only kind of thing that's, a bit of a bummer from my perspective, just because I like that junk. But again, I understand that there's a lot of work that goes into making those happen, having, inside stories on those things happening. All right, let's get back into the more kind of musical side of this. And, my initial hopes were that this wasn't just going to be a greatest hit set. And then I got to the show, and I was ready for greatest hits, or the best of W.A.S.P, because they've never had any hits. I think one of the interesting comparisons is I originally just pulled up my notes from our last episode, and looked at the 2010 set list. And pretty much what has been performed on this tour is the 2010 set list without Take Me Up, Scream Until You Like It, Arena of Pleasure, Babylon's Burning. So
crazy.
Well, that was performed at my show.
Yeah,
Bill, did it feel like the best of W.A.S.P? Or what did you feel about the spectrum of material that was performed?
Well, for starters, I didn't get anything past Crimson Idol in Versailles. Nothing past Crimson Idol. And which really, it sucks because I've really gotten into the later albums since we started doing this. And, I'm all the time, it's like, this is classic W.A.S.P. This is classic W.A.S.P. But, yeah, it was disappointing to not get any Crimson Idol stuff, anything past that. Like you said, you got Crazy and we didn't. You got Heaven Hung in Black. We didn't. And, I've actually been playing that on the station. I bet I've played it like 4 times in the past month, and I do a weekly show. So that tells you that I play it pretty often. But it definitely seemed like a good selection because ours was a 10-song set list, 7 in the main set, including the medley at the beginning, and then the 3-song encore. And I was impressed with how some of them kind of let me get to my notes here. For some reason, my computer just put Julian's face over my notes. I thought that, like, the medley in the beginning, that's some pretty out there stuff. It wasn't like there was there wasn't a video for anything. Well, was there a video for Electric Circus?
I don't remember. I'm like fixated on frickin' Elvis,
Yeah, I mean the first 5 songs there wasn't any. There weren't videos prior to that.
Because all the banners are still covering all the video screens at that part of the show.
No, I mean like when they were released. Like when Electric Circus came out, was there a video for that song?
No.
I don't think there was, because it was not like 9 to 5 Nasty was the only thing that was on there.
Yeah, and I don't need no doctor.
But okay.
Had a video.
So I mean, the first 4 or 5 songs didn't have any videos at all to them. And, they're pretty deep cuts. I like the performance. Let me just keep covering myself up here. I'm
right. So that medley's constructed of On Your Knees, The Flame, Torture Never Stops, and Inside the Electric Circus. And, go and check out the videos that are up on YouTube for these, because that's a kick-ass kind of opening machine gun of some highly identifiable stuff. I mean, those first 3, you basically live at the Lyceum 84,
right,
being honored right there and then.
And to get 5 in a row, that was just like, wow. You was wondering if you're going to have time to breathe through the whole show.
Yeah, Andy.
And medley. They were played super.
Now, I'm pretty sure I've heard the medley before, except for the Flame. I think the Flame was my biggest surprise out of the medley. But I was kind of bummed, man. I mean, they didn't play the full Electric Circus. I'm sorry. I know he says he doesn't like that album as much as some of the other ones, but there's a lot of diehards that love Inside the Electric Circus, man. And that song is classic. It just fits the whole circus theme thing. I wish I heard the whole song.
Yeah, Blackie now knows that, because at my VIP, the number of Electric Circus albums was pretty sick, and 95 Nasty ads from Kerrangs. I mean, there was all sorts of shit from that album that was being brought in. There was, a lot of Electric Circus and a lot of Crimson. And it was all of us who had like Last Command and Winged Assassin stuff that was kind of the outliers.
Well, you could tell the difference a little bit. I could say from the Boston VIP, there were a bunch of people who had a bunch of mixed stuff. It didn't seem to be all the same. Well, I shouldn't say that. Usually it's the first album, and anything the F like Animal. But there were like probably 5 or 6 people that had Crimson Idol stuff. So you could kind of tell the difference. It was kind of like, wow, you went from the first album to Crimson Idol to Animal. Those were like the majority of stuff, And, even I had a hard time. What do you pick to have signed in? To be honest, when I was introduced to W.A.S.P, it was a cassette tape. I went to see Kiss in Springfield, Massachusetts, and I was in a Mustang with one of those 65 Mustangs with six other guys. We blew off school, and 2 of the guys knew who W.A.S.P was. He's like, "Hey, Andy, check this tape. I'm going to put it in." I'm like, "Wow, that sounds pretty cool." And then by the end of the night, I was like, "Wow, these guys are pretty good." And I went out the next day and bought the cassette and da-da-da. So all my basically original albums, they're on my wall, and they're all sealed. So I wasn't going to crack the seal open. So I had to start hunting around for stuff that, like, say, what am I going to have signed? And what would, like, if I put it down in front of him, would he be like, ugh, I don't want to sign this? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I had this weird feeling of like, what should I bring? And then all of a sudden I found some picture disc, and I'm like, wow, what can I do? And I'm sorry, man. I love the Electric Circus. The whole Streamlight Till You Like It, man. Fits. I like horror movies. I know it's kind of a goofy horror movie, but I like horror movies and the whole W.A.S.P thing, and the whole circus thing. It just fit for me, and I brought him with the hat and stuff for the picture disc. And, where I got it? Where did I put that thing? Oh yeah, there it is. So I brought. This is one of the things I had, the picture disc, the Screaming Till You Like It thing, and so that was, I thought it was just cool because I just got had him on it, So got that signed, and then I couldn't find anything else, so then I said, man, I'll bring it. I almost wasn't going to bring it, but I says, what the hell? And because I know about the whole, animal thing that he was, I didn't even know if he was going to do it or not. So I happen to have a gold animal, because even somebody asked me at the meet and greet, they're like, what is that? And I'm like, it's an original gold meet and greet from that Music for the Nations from overseas.
England.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'll do it. And he just looked at it, signed it. It wasn't like a big deal to him. So I can now remember I went into this blank, not knowing if they hadn't even played Animal in the first week, or what is it, week and a half or something before I saw my show. So I had no idea. And anybody who tried to send me messages, I think, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. Yes.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting in my hotel in Anaheim watching Vegas from the night before, watching the whole thing. Bill, I know you didn't do the VIP, but what would you have gotten signed had you done it?
That's a pretty interesting question. I probably would have got my original Animal 12-inch single done, and maybe my Forever Free jacket that came with it was actually a poster. I think I showed that before, where the Forever Free album folded out to be a poster. I thought that would be kind of cool, and he might have, I don't know. He might have thought something about seeing Frankie on there or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, that's probably the couple things I would have got.
All right. Well, since we're doing this part of it, I got my Still Not Black Enough CD signed, because this was the one that I found in Glasgow that got me back into the band. I checked out and skipped Crimson because I just wasn't into that. I'm still not. So that album has meaning to me because I love it. And, Goodbye America, Black Forever. Great songs. And I wasn't the only one with that. Someone had the picture disc, which was really cool to see as well. But again, I've got a personal connection with that album, so I wanted Blackie to sign that. And then I'd actually bought this because I got rid of all my Animal stuff years ago because I'd evolved past it, a little bit like Blackie had. So I wanted to get something else signed, something that I could hang on the wall with my ticket stub and my VIP pass. So I picked up the Japanese 84 tour book, and it's a great piece of art, a photo, street photo. And I thought that would just look great hanging on the wall with the stub and the pics, and, to be a display as a memory item from that. Because, again, cassettes were where it was at back in the day.
Yeah.
Last Command cassette. I no longer have the ones that I had back in the day. I no longer have the videos because they were all British, and I didn't bring them out to America with me. And then my father chucked all my music stuff out where a lot of that, was.
Well, I probably bought Last Command and Headless Children on CD together. That would have been '89 because I just burnt up the tape of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have the CDs of the W.A.S.P catalog until I worked with Snapper, doing some PR for the reissue campaign before I moved back to America. So,
I used to buy cassettes, one for the car, right? Used to have one, slap one in the car, and one for home and the radio. So you wouldn't have to.
That's what we did. So I didn't want to pull out a cassette J card. I want to have something up on the wall because a lot of my musical story, I'll be able to look up and see that now and have happy memories of a great VIP experience, a couple of shows that I enjoyed doing, and also these W.A.S.P podcasts that we've done together as well. They're all going to form, part of what to me is an important item. It's not going up on eBay. Hell no.
Hey, Hey, the other thing too is, are we going to keep rolling with this VIP stuff? Is that
We'll go all over the
I gotta
place,
say,
Andy.
man,
We don't need structure.
You're the one that
This is-
set the schedule this week.
Yeah. I know he sent us, homework to do. We're like all over the place anyway. So Julian started to learn from me. Just squirrel. So I thought this was pretty cool because I tell you, to this day, I don't care. I hate the virtual tickets. And when I bought the VIP ticket, I actually got a real VIP ticket, but my ticket for Boston is on my damn phone, which sucks. So I get this thing printed out now, but it's not as good. But when I bought the VIP, they actually Ticketmaster sent you a real ticket. What I thought is, that's awesome. I'm like, Blackie, me, Blackie Walls show VIP, and those guys that you got your VIP. We got the message about a week before, telling you where to meet, what time, be there at 5:30. Don't be late because you don't want to miss it. Yeah, I think the guy's name is Jason. Came out, met everybody. Explained everything. Going to go through the metal detectors, do all this stuff. You got to do all the security thing just like you do it nowadays. We're going to give you our VIP laminates, right? You got to show them. These were pretty cool.
These are awesome.
And
Blackie had already signed these as well,
Yeah.
which is a really nice touch. And I put mine on the inside for some of my photos, so on my sweaty man boobs, the Sharpie did not rub off.
Yeah. And then, we walked in, and then he's like, here you go. Where did I put them? Where did they fall? Dude, you wouldn't believe it. I lost some of my picks, actually. I actually either lost some of them, and I gave some away. I literally had some in my pocket. I might have pulled them out. So, and the VIP, they gave you
3 electric
3 of
communion
them.
wafers.
A white one, a black one, and then 2 white, right? You got 2 white and a black, right?
I don't remember. I gave the other one away, so.
I think that's how it went. So they gave us those. Jason was cool. And then they said, hey, you're going to get your photo taken with Elvis. So in Boston, Elvis was off the stage on the side. So if anybody see my Facebook pictures, he was on the ground, really, not like laying on the ground, but sitting up, but against the thing, and the guitar was on there. So it was not on the stage in Boston. So we took our photos there. They took the photos, and then and I didn't even know, because on the VIP, if you read the original VIP off their website, it says you were actually supposed to hold the guitar. So I thought I was actually going to hold it. Now remember, again, I'm going to keep saying this. I went into this blank, not knowing what happened. So, and then I think Jason or somebody mentioned it. They were worried that somebody was going to put it over their shoulder or hold it and drop it or some crazy thing. And I get it. So I think that's why they decided to put it on Elvis, which was probably a better, not as cool for us, but I understand why they did that way.
I think it was cool, and it was the right decision. You don't want to be handing around someone's important, personal widow base that someone could inadvertently damage or drop on their foot or poke someone's eye out with. So, use it as an additional prop. And I'm sorry we've gone back into the VIPs, Bill.
It's all right.
Yeah, but I mean, you see the thing with the VIP. I know we're jumping around, but it leads up to the show thing. That's what kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we did jump. But anyways, and in the Boston, we were led into a place. We were standing around, and all of us. I think there were like 20 or 25 of us. I can't remember.
They capped the numbers so that they could keep it to a reasonable crowd and not be overrun like they do at Kiss VIPs. They will keep selling. They will just keep selling them, and because Kiss doesn't sign anything anymore, it's a different ball of wax.
Yeah, and it says right there. It will say if you on the VIP ticket, it says GAO, and it'll say a number 5 and number 6, because I know some people who went and they had numbers right after me. So I know it was 6, 7, 8, 9. So I think they capped it at 20 or 25, which was awesome, dude. That's, I'm telling you right now, now you say, to think like Gene Simmons, all the money, man, that rocked not having that many people. That made it extra awesomeness, because, you only need so many people, and it just seemed more personable, and that was awesome on that part of it. So I give way thumbs up on that part alone, just that alone, So in the Boston, everybody's just kind of like standing around, and Jason's talking to all of us, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've known Blackie for 20, 25 years. It's kind of different seeing him on stage like he used to be to where he is now. He's like he's just one of the guys hanging out, or just a regular kind of guy or whatever, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, you can ask him anything and this and that." And I started asking. I just threw out to Jason, which I think W.A.S.P would be perfect, even though it wasn't my W.A.S.P question because I didn't want to blow my Blackie question. To Jason and saying, "Hey man, these guys could do a cruise. The way W.A.S.P is set up, they could do a W.A.S.P cruise and they could sell it out easily. Because if you can get 1,000 to 1,200 to 2,000 people in a thing like they're doing now, a cruise that Julian, you've been on with me and us and stuff, that they only hold 2,300, the smaller ones. So W.A.S.P could sell out easy, and they could play acoustic. They could do different sets. They could bring more of the stuff for the inside shows. I think a W.A.S.P cruise would be off the hook, and they could bring like Armored Saint and some of their favorite bands, stuff like that. So, the guy was talking to us left and right, and then if anybody saw my Facebook page, all of a sudden the doors open, and they're like, "Hey, here comes Blackie." Blackie just goes in, sits behind the table, and like goes like this with his fingers, like, "Oh, which pen am I going to take?" And then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, come on over. Jason took your stuff. You put it down." And Blackie says, "Hi." Shake your hand. Started shaking people's hand. "How you doing?" "Hi, how you doing?" And they're like, "Look, here's the photo. Take the photo." And he signed. Blackie would say something for you like, "Oh yeah, I remember this," or "I don't remember that." "Oh, that's pretty cool. I've seen a couple of signees and this and that." And then everybody went through, and then Blackie started, "Okay, who wants to start?" And Blackie goes, "I'm just going to go around the room and start asking questions. You ask your question." So everybody starts asking all the questions. Some of them that we know of are the same. You know what I mean? Like, "Oh, how come Chris isn't there?" And this and that and everything else. All those things. But my question though, I didn't put it up online, so I wanted to break it here because I just thought it was different.
Right.
Because
here we go. Hot news.
Yep. Because I had a million questions in my brain, through all these years, and like I was kind of like, it's right before I was going to do it, and I'm like, but then I just went to California, okay, and I said, you know what? One of the places I wanted to go to was the hotel where Blackie was sitting like this at the pool with his legs crossed, right, waiting for Ace Frehley in 1977 before Kiss was going to play in Anaheim Stadium because Ace and Blackie are friends. So I went to that hotel. I had just got back from the Kiss cruise in California, that Marquise Hotel, which I guess is very famous for a lot of rock stars who still go to this day. And the guy let us in. He's like, "Yeah, go ahead. Go check out the pool. The pool's right there. There's a couple of them, but the pool's right there." And I couldn't believe it. So I sat there and like this. So my question to Blackie, which everybody in the room was like pretty well like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." What Blackie mentioned and said about it when I asked him, I said, "Blackie, you and Ace were friends back in the day. Do you still talk to Ace Frehley now? Or do you have any music stuff or, that kind of thing kind of going?" And Blackie turns around and says, "You know what? I just talked to Ace like 2 months ago." And I was like, "Oh, cool." So everybody's like, "Cool." And he goes, and Blackie turns around and says, "You know what? I told Ace, he goes, 'Hey, Ace, let's go out together.'" And I almost shit right then and there. "But let's not do W.A.S.P stuff or Ace Frehley stuff. Let's do stuff that we love and grew up on, like the Cream stuff and the Led Zeppelin stuff."
An Origins tour.
That would be badass.
Everybody going, it's like, that's freaking badass. So you imagine that, Ace Frehley being the lead guitar, Blackie Lawless doing his thing, and Ace doing, they both maybe sing songs, man. Just all, wow, with that sell. And Blackie said Ace just never. He asked him, want to do it, and just nothing. Blackie says just nothing came of it. But Blackie said he'd be up for it. He'll do it if Ace wants to do it. And I was just like, "Oh my God, that's awesome!"
Ace,
so
Ace
that was my question in Boston.
I thought Blackie and Ace had a song together back in the day, like Hot Lips or something like that. I'd have to look it up. I don't remember. But that's a good question.
Yeah.
You've covered all the photo and the autograph part of it. I'll just let you know my question so we can get back to talking about the show because Bill's just been put on the sideline here.
Oh, I've got a question I want to ask after you talk about yours.
Okay, so at our VIP, number one, I got to give a shout out to all the VIP attendees. what a great bunch of people in San Francisco. You had great questions, but you were also really cool and respectful of each other, which is really nice. It's not always been that way at some of the VIPs that I've attended. There's been some real dinks there. And I knew a couple of the guys there, which was cool as well to be able to say hi after not seeing them for several years, and one I've never met in person, knew online. So that was excellent. So I had gone all through my head what I wanted to ask Blackie. I'm like, what the hell do I ask Blackie? I don't want to ask a Kiss question. I mean, that would just be so freaking obvious for me. And when it came time for it, it was just, Blackie, hey, last couple of years we've lost people like Bob Kulick and Frankie Banali. Would you share a couple of memories about them? And he sat back and he thought, and I'm like, oh shit, security's coming. I've asked a question that he's not comfortable with.
You got the wrong rock star there, Julian.
Totally got the wrong rock star, because he was absolutely awesome. He sat back and thought about his answers for both of those two departed gentlemen who were part of his musical life. And as he told us, and it's up on Brave Words today, that he had met Frankie the first day he was in California. And they had a musical... Who would have thought that someone who he met randomly on the first day, he would have a musical relationship going on for decades and a friendship equally with him. And he also had a very nice thing to say about Bob Kulick, about Bob being a musical sponge, which is kind of funny with Bob and the SpongeBob thing. He was very respectful of both of those guys. And I just thought it was nice to ask him about both of those guys, one who plays on Crimson Idol and Still Not Black Enough, and the other one who played on Headless Cross and other recordings as well throughout the W.A.S.P career.
You keep saying Headless Cross, you mean Headless Children.
God. Well, that's a great album too.
I watched one of our past episodes. It was like the second one I was on, and you called it Headless Cross.
I'm sorry. That's one of my favorite Black Sabbath albums. Absolutely love that album. But Headless Children. Headless Children. I will.
Okay, you owe it to me. You can call me out on these one of these days.
Rise your heart.
Yeah.
All right. What's your question?
Okay, I had a question because, this was the question I would ask Blackie, because I had read somewhere that he was drafted to play baseball for the Cincinnati Reds, and this would have been probably the time that he was in the New York Dolls. And I would ask him, what would be the turning point that made you choose music over playing baseball? Because from what I understand, he is still an enormous baseball fan.
Go listen to the San Francisco Q&A. I think he answered that question there.
Really?
Yeah, because
that would be awesome.
he was asked about the baseball connection by a couple of people about his uncle who did play ball. I think it was. I don't remember the details. It's all a little bit of a blur. So do check it out. There's some good answers. He also talked about the New York Dolls, and he really downplayed it as just two shows, momentary. Really only important in that it got him to California, rather than everyone thinks New York Dolls. Not unimportant to him.
But didn't he have a band with Kane after that?
Yeah, Killer Kane, first recording.
Okay,
and he talks about that as well. And the guy who was getting his stuff signed in front of me had the original EP with him.
Oh, wow.
Which I've seen quite a few of people getting signed. So
I love the Dolls.
The Dolls are seminal. They are important, and just to have Blackie somewhat connected to them, connected to early Kiss, again, that's what makes it all interesting. Is the musical cross pollination that you just dig into some of the history. Some people don't care, but I think those of us who do podcasts and listen to it love these random connections that come from these bands and throughout their lifespans. So.
Now,
right. Andy, is that it for VIP?
No, one more, quick.
Yeah,
you guys know
you had problems with your photos, didn't you, in Boston?
Yeah. I had not just me, the whole group that went into Boston for some strange reason, the camera or something. So all our pictures were like really, really fuzzy. I thought it was just me, and I'm like, oh man, bummer. But during the VIP, Julian, they let you videotape all you wanted.
They
let you take
encourage it.
They encouraged it all. But a lot of times, I mean, I've done it. Blackie does the same thing I do. Is I learned from my dad the same thing, and I understand it's like an aggressive thing, or you're mad. Is you cross your arms like this, and I do that a lot, and I've learned. It's like my dad's habit too, and this is like that. So when you take photos, it looks like the person's always angry because they're like, I'll sit like this, and people are like, Andy, why are you angry? I'm like, I'm not angry because your arms are like this. It's like a sign, I guess. I don't know, but that's why I stopped taking photos, and I didn't want to videotape. I just wanted to enjoy the moment. But then, anyways, I had originally bought tickets for the show down in Long Island. So me and Kim were going. I took Kim to her first W.A.S.P show. She was like, I don't know about this. So we had actually had seats in the back. But on the way down, which was supposed to be like a 4 hour...
I bet she enjoyed seeing all of that show being 4 foot tall.
Well, she was in seats, so it was okay. But a 4 to 4.5 hour trip that ended up being like 6.5, almost 7 hours. There was so much traffic all the way from Mass all the way down there. It was awful that day. And of course, I was still sick. So, anyways, I had thought in my own brain, I'm like, man, I wonder if they'll let me like take the photos over and then just leave. You know what I mean? Get the photos fast and then go and let everybody else do their VIP stuff. You know what I'm saying? So on our way down, I'm like, man. And then somebody contacted me, says, Andy says, a guy named Troy I know from Rhode Island, and his dad was connected with a coin. If you'll see, his uncle was coin stuff and all this stuff. So he knows stuff, but I know he's going down there. So he's like, Andy, just call Jason. They gave a phone number. And I'm like, I don't feel like bugging a guy like that. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I'll just go down there, and when they come out with the VIP, I'll just talk to them there face to face and see what happens. Well, I called anyways, and did we lose Bill?
No, he's awake.
No, he's video. I don't see him.
Hello.
No, I don't see you. So, so I called
Bill, I
Jason.
Okay.
Yeah. Jason couldn't have been any nicer. He's like, oh, dude, no problem. Come on down. We'll put you back in. I'm like, oh, just take my photos and go. He's like, no. You're going to do the whole thing. Blackie and us, we want you to do the whole thing over. And I was like, shocked. I'm like, are you kidding me? I go, well, there's only one thing. He said, what's the matter? I go, my wife's with me, and I don't want to leave her alone. Not that she's scared or nothing, and she had seats, but she would have to wait outside for another hour and a half or something, whatever it was. So they're like, oh, no, she can come. Bring her with you. And I was like, really? And I'm like, okay, well, I'll take my photos and we'll leave. We'll go. No. You guys stay. So anyways, they let Kim do the whole thing. Kim felt weird. Kim felt very strange and awkward. She's like, I don't know this band. I don't know these guys. I feel bad. There are people who probably would love to do this, and here I am standing next to my husband going, I don't know anything. And it was kind of like, yeah, it was very little awkward for me because I had to kind of push her because I'm like, just go take a picture with Blackie Lawson. And she's like, I don't know who he is. And she goes, I don't know. And I'm like, just go do it.
He won't bite you, Kim.
I know. And I was like, so she did it, took her picture, smiled, took her picture, and she was all happy. But she didn't ask a question. She didn't want to ask a question. She's like, no way I'm asking a question. So I said, okay, no problem. And I actually stood in the back behind everybody because now we're in the arena where they did the meet and greet for the one in Long Island. So we were actually in the arena. Armand Saint was still practicing. And actually, I did a little videotape, which I got a slap on the hand. I did it for myself. I didn't post it. I guess it was the first time that Bush and the other guy, I could be wrong, they were singing together for the first time together doing the duel. They were practicing. And I got like a 30-second before somebody came over and slapped my hand and said, stop that. And I was putting it away anyways. I just did it for myself. I've never posted it. So anyways, so when I did the VIP, I'm staying in the back going like this because I wasn't expecting to get asked anything. I was trying to stay out of the way now. Get my photos and get it over. And then Black goes, go ahead, ask a question. I said, oh, man, here we go again. So I said, you know what? I'll just ask maybe a plain, simple question, which everybody, I don't know if it's been even asked. I said, do you have any of the original props from the back in the day or any of the props from back in the day? Do you keep them? And I go, and on the same part of the question, I said, because I know your original chain microphone, which would love to have seen throughout this VIP, is in the It's in the UK in a Hard Rock. It's in the Hard Rock thing, and they got it named. It's not Blackie Lawson's. It's Paul Stanley's. And Blackie laughed when I said that because somebody like Bay Bailey from the UK, I know somebody told me that it's in the Hard Rock in the UK, and it says Paul Stanley's microphone, the whole stand. And Blackie just kind of laughed and just shook his head, and he kind of like, nah, never mind, I'm not going to say nothing. But Blackie said that they went to the warehouse and stuff. They do have it all. They have a bunch of stuff, and it's all going to go in an auction and for sale next year.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and everybody's like, holy smokes. So who's thinking the Gene Simmons thing now?
I just got a new platinum card.
So, I can't thank Jason and company enough, though. That's why I said I want to give the shout out to the guys and stuff. They couldn't have been more accommodating. I'm telling you, they tried to help everybody out. If anybody could go to the next show or another show, that they could do all the VIP over and everything else. They'd even offered to buy my tickets to get into the show. And I'm like, no, I already pre-bought them. They looked at me, and I'm like, yes, I already bought these months and months ago. I was already coming to the show anyways. So I can't say enough about those guys. And we retook the pictures, and my pictures came out awesome. And they and also down there in Long Island, Elvis was actually on the stage, hooked up to where it was supposed to be. So we actually were on stage, which was even cooler than the Boston than not being on the stage. So in the long run, if I could have switched everything, I would have had my original meet and greet down on Long Island. But anyways, it all worked out. Fantastic. Those guys can real, and I do feel bad for the rest of the people who couldn't do it, but they said they were going to make it up to them. And I don't want to say what it is because I don't want anybody to get mad.
Not our business. So, again, what my overriding opinion is that they went out of their way to make sure that everyone got good value for money, was treated respectfully, and had a good time. My photos came in today exactly when they said they were going to come in, and they were fantastic. So I was really thrilled with how the shots with Elvis turned out. The shots with Blackie, it's a little awkward with him sitting and you either crouching, and some people are tactile and put their arm around him. And I did see one fellow who was in a wheelchair who Blackie got up and went behind him and did a super cool pose to work for that situation.
That's awesome.
But even looking at myself kind of crouching and doing an arthritic horns, I'm happy with it. I'm really happy with how it went. Would I like a backdrop behind them, a proper backdrop? Yeah, maybe. But one thing that did make me kind of giggle, knowing Andy's problems, was when they were testing the camera before anyone went up on stage. Took some test shots to make sure everything, again, lighting, and lens is clean. I had a little chuckle to myself, and I didn't say anything, but I thought that was cool. But they really went out of their way, and for the $350, value was delivered to me. No complaints. And if I ever see Gene Simmons, I'm going to hold up that fucking meet and greet picture from Edmonton where I'm actually standing there coming into frame, and they just snap the picture and Gene's looking there bored, not even gotten into his photo pose yet, and I'm not even turned around, and it's like, that's a fucking ripoff. But they took care of you, Andy. Let's get back to the music so that Bill could participate in this conversation.
We were at song number 2.
All right, song number 2 was Crazy. Oh wait, you guys didn't get that. So I did get Crazy. And quickly, my thoughts on that. It was great to have later period of W.A.S.P in the set, but it was a dead spot for the crowd.
Wow.
It was totally. It got zero response. Blackie even upsold it with a big intro, and flatlined. So I'm not surprised that that's gone. Then we get into stuff like Love Machine. Let me just pull up your guys' set, because that was Love Machine and Wild Child. So 2 early era. Bill.
They were absolutely perfect. I mean, they were well presented, and I'm going to use the word presented. I'm not going to make any kind of comments on what all the drama's about. But I mean, everything sounded great. The overall PA sound was fabulous. You know, there was no squeaking microphones or nothing like that. With Love Machine, I noticed that Blackie's role as the conductor. He would point out to Mike when he would be singing the Randy Piper parts in the originals, and you know, like that for Wild Child too. Any of the other backing vocals that those guys picked up, but overall, Blackie wasn't quite into the performance. It seemed like he wasn't into the performance. It seemed like he was just kind of directing everything through, and that was about to change. But both songs were really well presented, and the crowd really got into them.
Yeah, my take on those is just, as expected, they were a hell of a 1-2 punch, and I actually liked Blackie directing the counter vocals. You know, turning, pointing. It was very theatrical, very physical acting. So, you know, I thought that was cool. And yeah, let's go to just quickly before I go to Andy. Yeah, there is audio enhancement going on in these shows. Blackie addressed it head on, didn't bullshit, explained what's going on, why it's going on, and to me that's end of subject. I'm sure some purists will still be going, but complaining about it, and that's fine. Complain about it. If you go to the shows, you're getting a great performance, and you're getting it presented how he, as the artist, feels it needs to be presented. Go listen to his video where he talks about it. That's his opinion. If you don't like it, don't go, because you know what? They sold out without you. Andy.
Yeah, just the thing of what you're saying, what he just said. I don't care, man. And also, you didn't pay like thousands of dollars for the ticket, right? Most tickets were like $50, weren't they? I think they're like $50.
50 to 100. I can't remember. Anaheim was 45, and Regency was 90 because I wanted to sit on the balcony.
Yeah, GA at Versailles was 30, and the balcony was 40.
Yeah.
So I got a nice seat.
Yeah, so you figure it's about $5 a song, right? If you get 10 songs, you get $5.
And, and you got an Armored Saint set to go as well, you know?
You know, I mean, sometimes, that's like after being at 2 Kiss shows, you can kind of pick out when something sounds like a tape and when it doesn't. You know, you get familiar with that. And, I mean, unless, you know, you could hear breath and voices and stuff like that. And it was primarily background vocals, you know, just harmonies and stuff like that. As far as I know, all the instruments was absolutely live. Yeah.
So shit that's going to shred a 66-year-old throat, I don't have a problem with him protecting his voice, because I'd rather he doesn't sound like Paul Stanley, to be completely fair.
Yeah, and the thing is, you hit the nail on the head, man. He's in his 60s, for Christ's sakes, man. Most of the time that most of these people are complaining and stuff like that is because they're sitting behind the keyboard, right? I guarantee they can't do stuff that they did when they were 10 years old. You know, even myself, I'm like, man, I have a ton of energy, as you guys know, and I'm still like all over the place, but I still at times like, oh my God, I can't. Sometimes I want to do stuff, but I still can't do certain things or run around as much as I used to, even though I still run around. But you know what I mean? I can't do that. So I can't imagine some of these people sitting here behind a computer bitching and complaining about what's going on. I mean, they're up there. This is a guy who's been doing this now for whatever, 40, 50 years or whatever, since he's been, in his 20s. At least he's still doing it. You know what I mean? He could have checked out long ago. He didn't have to do this stuff. None of these guys owe us anything. Everybody thinks we owe. I mean, look at some of those bands there from the 80s and even the 90s or 2000s are completely gone. They lasted a couple of years and they're completely gone. At least there's
artists on their first album that are miming more than I've seen. So,
and he's not miming; he's still singing the whole set. He has some MSG going. You know, it's an enhancer.
You see breath, you see chest movement and stuff like that, and you see inflections in the throat. It's not like you're just standing up there like Edge in a YouTube video or something. But I mean, spoiler alert: at the end of the show, there wasn't any outrage of people rolling out the door. It was just a high energy that everybody just got their ass kicked for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to see, and that's what I saw.
Yeah, that was what was at the end of both shows I went to. People came out and they were pumped. They were like, "We just saw W.A.S.P again for the first
Yeah.
time in over 10 years." Go listen again. Go listen to Blackie's explanation. If you accept it, go buy a concert ticket the next time you have an opportunity to see them. If you don't accept it, don't go, because you know what? If you're going to be miserable there, you're not wanted. If you're going to
Right.
be a keyboard warrior and not go to it and just judge it secondhand, your opinion is not wholly valid. Do what's right for you. Don't worry about anyone else. We're going to keep going to the shows and doing what's right for us, but we don't need to hear your whining. All right, let's get back.
I was sitting next to a guy who was at his first show. And this guy was probably, if not my age, he was probably 5 years younger than me. And he was at his first W.A.S.P show, and he was absolutely blown away by the whole thing.
Yeah, you know what? Love Machine and Wild Child, the audience at both shows were singing louder than the PA. I mean, let it roar. I mean, what was Blackie thinking from the stage when he sees these animals singing his songs back to him, going nuts? All right, so next two songs you guys don't get.
So, but before we skip that, I love, if they had like the circus theme and then the curtain, the drapes dropped here and there, the drops so they could show the video screens.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that they put the original videos,
Oh yeah, that's right.
songs behind them right on cue. So, I mean, like me or you guys, like, okay, we know that those guys were the original guys who played in the band at that time or up on those screens. They did the song. This is how they used to do it as they were younger or whatever. This is how they did it now, but this is how we do it now. I think it's very, like, nostalgic. I think that pumps the crowd even more when they're looking at it, because you're like, this is my, like, teenager or childhood or teenager or whatever, whenever you discovered W.A.S.P. and you're like, oh man, that video, I remember that video, and la la la, and now they're doing it now. I thought that was awesome, because you got to he's giving like props to the guys who were in the band.
Very
So
respectful to the past.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
I love, yeah. Yeah, so I love the videos right behind the screens. That was just awesome. That's why I wanted to hear "Scream Until You Like It." You get that whole video. Okay,
I
next.
love that video.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, those videos were what got me hooked on the band, because I was an MTV fishbowl guy. I was hook and mouth, hooked on all those videos from back in the day. So that was my introduction to a lot of this music coming out of the stuff I was listening to prior to being a metalhead. Duran Duran.
Okay, nothing wrong with that.
No, still listen to them and love them. So
Love them.
No shame there. So in Anaheim, I got Heaven's Hung in Black, which had one of the best video sequences of the tour. The Gettysburg in the background, setting up the song. Blackie's monologue, narrating it in, really poignant. And I'm bummed that they took that out. I think there were technical issues around it or some other issues. It doesn't matter. But then it goes into Hellion, and I'm like, another song from the first album. I'm in heaven here. And then I Don't Need No Doctor, because it was a medley for those two. And I always loved that song. I know it's a cover. I don't care. W.A.S.P owns that cover for me. I've heard versions by other artists, but they didn't do either of those three for you, so I do apologize. But I'm so glad I got to see those and hear them.
I got to see it in '92, so.
Back in the day. And
There you go,
I
Bill.
didn't see them back then, because well, 92 was not a good year for me. Getting back into the set, we now go into what for me is a personal dead zone that kind of sucked out a lot of the energy from the set. Obviously, as Blackie says, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Crimson Idol. So we get 3 songs in a row. The Idol, Great Misconceptions of Me, and Chainsaw Charlie. And that album, again, I skipped that era. And I'm reminded why I did it. Yeah, they're good songs, but it just went on a bit too long in the middle of the set, and the pacing suffered. Bill, what did you think about that?
I that 100%. It really did just slammed the brakes on the pacing. I think maybe if the Idol was not in that trio, If it had been something, just misconceptions and Chainsaw Charlie, it might have been better. But there was a lot of build up to the full version of the Idol that slowed everything down a bit. But I mean, still exceptionally presented. And some of the people that I was with, they hadn't seen the video from the Reidolized set, so they were seeing that all those video screens there, and it did, for somebody who hadn't been into that, they really dug it that way. But it was still a bit of a mood killer. But then it turns around pretty quick. I mean, it incrementally with misconceptions, and then with Chainsaw Charlie, they kind of get back up to speed with it.
Oh yeah, Chainsaw, you're full on W.A.S.P again. Andy, what was your take on?
I know people go. I understand you guys saying like the crowd didn't really, some of the crowd didn't understand it, but I loved it, and it just reminds me how this should remind you how good Bob Kulick was on lead guitar. Really, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, seriously, that has to be the Idol. Has to be, to me personally, it's got to be one of Bob Kulick's best all-around guitar solo, and all the little solos in between that song and everything else. And it makes Conception people really kind of, that one's probably the more the dead one out of the three. But when Chainsaw Charlie started coming back on, you could tell the difference in the crowd. The people are like, what is this? And then the diehards that I want to be next to all night long are like, yeah, here we go again. you know? So to me, it wasn't that much of a downer, deader, and I don't really care, but really around me. It's I guess it's whatever makes you happy, right? You're in your little square box, and that which makes you happy. So to me, I'm just like, the more W.A.S.P, the merrier. That's how I look at it, man. I'm here. I'm alive. I get to see this stuff. I don't care. It's been 10 years. Now I have an old friend who just passed away, literally passed away 2 months before the show. And he was like, I introduced him to W.A.S.P. He's a year younger than me. We went to high school. We met in high school. I was he was coming in as a freshman. I was a sophomore. He's a huge Kiss fan. He came with all these buttons on, and like he had, back in the day with all the armor, right? He had a jeans jacket, and he had buttons and patches. Oh, you look like an armor. Oh, you're a Kiss fan too? And I just looked at him. Yeah, because I had the same thing. I mean, it's kind of like silly. And, we had became friends, and then all that, and they introduced him to W.A.S.P, and then we were going to Kiss shows together, going to W.A.S.P shows together, taking these travels. So, I look at it that way, and all the past things of what's been going on with the crazy world and what's been happening in my personal life with Kim getting really sick from all that stuff. I don't want to get into all this stuff. And then me getting really sick. And then all of a sudden I hear, my old friend there had passed away. They found him gone in his apartment. So, and he was going to go to the W.A.S.P show in Boston. So it was just, you got to think of it that way, man. It might not be, oh my God. I mean, granted, I wanted to hear a million W.A.S.P songs, but I'll take anything I can get my hands on. It's been 10 years. So enjoy the moment, I guess. Just suck it up, people. Enjoy I can see this in 10 years,
Yeah, tomorrow's never promised, so you got to take advantage of what you've got in front of you. So,
Yeah, and you got to enjoy.
my condolences too.
Yeah, exactly. Our condolences, Andy, on his passing, because I'm sure he would have enjoyed, if he's anything like you, he would have loved this show. And I think that was my attitude going to San Francisco. Was I knew that those songs were gone from the set, and I was like, I don't care. I'm getting to see W.A.S.P again. So it's all good. All right, so Blind in Texas takes us back into kind of the classics, the first three. Bill, your thoughts on Blind?
Well, that's my jam. Actually, I didn't do the Last Command episode with you guys, but yeah, that Blind in Texas is my jam. And I had told you about the connection I'd made with Randy Piper in the past, and how he kind of showed me a few things. And I was a little disappointed that the solo wasn't closer, but other than that, man, it's a rollicking high speed boogie, and it's just what you needed to put the pedal to the floor for the rest of the show.
Yep. Andy.
The only thing, it's always an awesome classic. The only thing I miss is "Let's Party." That's why.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was waiting for one of the guys to yell it out. They never did.
Everybody in the house yelled it at our show. Everybody.
I mean, you could hear the audience do it, but it would have been kind of cool if you just said, "Let's party."
Yeah. Well, there you go. All right, here we go. Encores. Animal. What did you guys think about the way Blackie did decide to execute it, in that he didn't sing any of the lyrics that he now doesn't identify with? He performed the song, let the audience sing it. It was not done completely. It was a semi-medley in Kicking Into Real Me. We did pretty much most of it, and the mosh pit broke out at this point. In San Francisco. I never thought I'd see a mosh pit at a W.A.S.P concert. It just seems to be the wrong sort of music, but that audience was going freaking nuts on the floor and made me so pleased I was up in the balcony. Bill.
I totally respect his decision on how he wants to perform the song. I wasn't disappointed by the way it was performed, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And things got a little heated, but we never broke out in a full mosh pit at Versailles. But yeah, I mean, that I had my notes, that it became a room full of animals at that point. That people were going berserk because they were hearing, song number one, and it really brought back the memories.
Andy, since you took the Music for Nations Animal disc in to get signed, what did you think of how the band performed it, and did it turn you into an animal?
You know what, man? It was always a question if he was going to play it or not. And like I said, I went into this blind, man. But I'll tell you, man, I thought that was awesome how they represented it, how they went through the thing with the PMRC, because there were people there like watching this stuff, that might have never seen back in the day, like what was happening. Because there was a couple beside me that had never seen W.A.S.P before. It was their first time, and even Kim, and I was explaining to her and somebody else between the Boston show on one of them and down in Long Island, and they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, watch this video and read like what he's saying, and this is what happened, really, really happened. And I'm like, this is freaking awesome, because it just doesn't come out and just say, "Hey, all of you rivet heads here looking for a little bit of," you know what I mean? It changed the whole perspective of it. If this is what happened, and they were on the dirty list of 15, and the woman, what's her name's holding the album. It was so awesome. Just the way they presented it, it came out awesome, and then they just ripped right into it. Classic. Now that was just like Bill said, you like in the beginning of the show, you wanted that pop. That was the rise up to the pop, man, right there. And the crowd just went berserk. Everybody starts singing. Everybody knows that song. It doesn't matter. You're like, yeah. But it wasn't like a mosh pit, but everybody was just like, yeah, I can't believe it. Yes. Going out of their minds. So it was awesome. It was just weird. It was just the only thing is I wish they just why didn't you just finish it? And you knew the audience was going to sing, "Rock Like a Beast," you know what I mean? The audience was going to say it more louder than anything. So why him even bother singing? Because the audience is just going to take over. But it'd been cool if they just finished it off. But that's it. I thought it was awesome. I know you said you didn't like it, but I loved it. I loved the way they represented it.
I wasn't sure how I was going to react to it. Again, I get Blackie's perspective on this, that I've moved past that and don't feel entirely comfortable with some of the songs I really liked when I was a kid. And I didn't sing along to it. But I loved the energy in the room from those who were singing along to it and fists in the air and going nuts. So I liked the energy that it caused, but I'm not part of that energy. And I'm just a different fan, and I'm still an equal W.A.S.P fan as anyone else. There are just other songs that I like more, and always did. I had the Restless cassette. I had the picture disc of it. I had a 45 of it. I don't have them anymore. I've moved on. So it's not important to me. And I thought that Blackie straddled that line in a really good way for himself, in that he performed it but didn't participate in it. So he provided the backing track and let the people who wanted to be part of the song be part of the song. So I thought it was free choice.
It was really a good example of the artist separating themselves from the art in spite of their changing belief or whatever.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that can't do that. That's been a question for decades. Can the artists separate themselves from their art? And I think it was a pretty decent job that he did of it.
I think it was pretty ballsy.
Yeah.
To, number one, not cop out and say, I don't believe in the song anymore, so I'm not going to perform it. Instead, he found a way that it could be done that worked for him. Now, I'd love to know now if after doing this on tour, whether he still feels comfortable with that middle ground or whether it's one that he needs to further evaluate and decide, especially as a business person and a band, seeing the response that it does get from the audiences. Andy, you were going to say something?
Andy shook our heads at the same time.
Well, you know what? To me, yeah, I get it. It's more, let's face it, it's childish, right? Some of the lyrics are actually childish. You're,
misogynistic,
18,
non-PC,
yeah,
but whatever.
You're all,
rock and roll still is.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, the whole thing, it's the music part, that the whole music, it just got that vibe, that the whole thing about it. I don't think he's not even the full lyrics. I mean, they got worse. I mean, everybody's like, oh my God, Animal Beast and stuff. No, go listen to KFD. You want a song
listen to some Rammstein. Christ.
Yeah, you think Animal's like bad or nasty? Go put on KFD.
Yeah, I was jamming yesterday. I had my guitar out. I'm just riffing around, and I started playing that fucking riff. And I kept playing it. And 20 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I gotta stop this because I was starting to sing it. It is a great riff. It is It's a great piece of music, and it is raw. And again, it is the very beginning of W.A.S.P. It is a big part of the band's story. So let's go back to January. We all came up with lists of songs that we were hoping. We had our wish list, our expectations. And I went back and looked at mine, and I had 24 songs on it that I'd like to hear. I got 11. I'm absolutely amazed that I got that many out of my list that I wanted to hear. So I think that probably puts me a little bit more into kind of the I'm happy as a greatest hits fan rather than the hardcore deep stuff, because none of the deep stuff got done. But I didn't have Torture, I didn't have Hellion, I didn't have The Flame or Electric Circus on the set. And I'm good. I'm super good with the set that I got in Anaheim. And you know what? I'm super good with the set that I got in San Francisco. The show in Anaheim was just under 1 hour, 45 minutes. I think it was 1:23-ish, so 20 minutes had been pruned out for whatever reason. I was good with both because the doors still opened and we were all streaming out onto the street at Gone 11, which for me is perfect because I don't want to be out all night. Bill, when you look back at your list and some of the things that you hoped, how did you do?
I couldn't find my list, but I wasn't disappointed with anything I saw. I do wish, there'd been a little bit more latter-day stuff, but I'm not sure what latter-day stuff I had on my list. And, but I mean, the show was exciting from beginning to end, and even the low spots weren't dreadful. It stayed exciting. You stayed engaged, and you just, you walked out with your mind blown at the end of it.
What was the standout? If you're going to pick a moment from the concert, what was the high point for you and what was the low? And I'll come back to you to give you a moment to think of that while I go to Andy on how did you do on the songs that you hoped to hear and that which you did?
I'm like Bill. I can't remember what I said.
So you both failed to do your homework? Is that what you're saying? That I provided only hours before the show?
Yeah, only like. Yeah,
I
but
think.
You know what? Again, I don't care because I was happy to be there. Of course, I would love to hear more songs. I won't lie, and I hope they see this or hear this. Play longer. That's probably my biggest out of this whole thing. That you have a huge career, and I want you to play longer.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's the 40th anniversary. Represent as much of those 40 years as possible, which you kind of lose by taking out Heaven and Crazy. All right, Bill. High point, low point.
High point, definitely. I Want to Be Somebody, and Blind in Texas would be a close second. The low point, I'm sorry, Andy, because I know how much you love the Idol, but it just was a low spot. Actually, but I could actually put one below the Idol, and it was the text leading up to Animal was moving just a little too slow. It was kind of, it's like you're what I think it was typing out as you was reading it, right? Where it typed out like digitally, and it just seemed like it was moving a little too slow. It's like, okay, come on, you're filling up a page of text here, and it took a little too long to do that. So I'll go with that bit there, even less than the Idol.
In typical Kiss fan fashion, I was going, you could have done another song in the time it did the intro. It took to do the intro to Animal. Andy, high point, low point.
For me, high point is actually being there and seeing W.A.S.P. Period. I don't care in that perspective. I'm just happy that I was at 10 years. It took 10 years to get to see them. So for me, all the way across the board, it's all happy. But I don't want to say it's a low point. But I've said it a million times. I'm not the fondest of cover tunes. So, and I understand what the connection for the real me is for him. And I don't need no doctor. That's just something they covered. But the real me, I know people are going to like probably stranglehold me of that. But that to me, that's like a low thing for me, because I would rather take that out and put a newer song in. Even, you know what I mean? I would rather hear original songs and not cover songs. That's just me. You know?
Then you wouldn't want to go see them play with Ace Frehley when they do their cover tour, right?
Oh, come on. Real me.
Ouch.
I don't need no
Zing.
doctor. Promised Land with Ace Frehley. Yeah.
Promised Land. Oh, man, that would be intense.
Yes. And you know what? Blackie loves Elvis. Clearly. I mean, he owns Elvis's bed. Come on, Suspicious Minds. A W.A.S.P. version of that. I would love. Blackie Lawless Origins Volume 1.
Yeah. Bill, you got me there, Bill. You got me. But I would like to see them together. It would be cool. It'd be interesting because it would be them together. And if they did stuff, it would be probably a good mix. But after all these years of seeing them since the songs come out, I think maybe that's why there are a lot of people like really going crazy over that. Now it's just kind of like, huh? But maybe it's because I've seen it since it's come out. Every time I've seen him on tour, he's played the real me. And
okay, I'll take your side on this. That I would have sacrificed the real me and I Don't Need No Doctor for a couple other songs.
Hellion.
If he had chosen to do that. Well, yeah, Hellion. I know that Hellion. If I made a list, Hellion's on it. Because that's just it.
I can't believe that Hellion wasn't on my list, because I think I had the biggest reaction to that when I left San Pedro from the pre-cruise stuff to drive to Anaheim. I got in my car, I dropped off my keys, put on CD player, hit random, and I blew out of San Pedro, squealing tires to The Torture Never Stops. So it was absolute perfection that was in the opening medley for me. What was the high points? I think you both touch on some of the important parts of it. Is simply being at a W.A.S.P. show. It has got to be a high point. I think a low point, if I'm going to pick any, and I've mentioned how, the 3 Idol song was a kind of a pace killer. I like to see a little bit more done with the staging. The video screens were great, and I thought the use of video was very good, but there was very little else going on stage. There were some hanging skulls and whatnot. I'd just like to see a little bit more show coming into the whole presentation. But again,
You have the monkey?
What?
Did you have the monkey on the side?
Yes, in Anaheim.
Yeah, see, if you went to different shows, like in Boston, like they didn't have some of the props up. They had like a chair and a chair in the background with some skulls on it. But then when we went to Long Island, they didn't have the chairs, but they had a giant monkey with, whatever. And so I mean, it was different places. You got like weird, like different little things.
I'm not expecting Rush washing machine or tumble dryers, tumbling laundry, or rotisserie chickens going in a set. Just something a little bit more visual for action on there to kind of offset some of the static performance, because Blackie does move around the stage, but there isn't a ton of motion going on, and the lighting was, it was okay, but not great.
The light.
Here you go, Julian. He goes over and there's the box that says raw meat on it. He flips open the top of it, grabs a big red steak out of it, and then puts it on a rotisserie.
So this is 2022. It would have to be a Beyond Steak.
All right.
Throw raw tofu at the crowd.
The other thing. Now I was up close. I wasn't close in Boston, but up in Long Island when we did the VIP. They all of a sudden they didn't let anybody in yet. We were done. So everybody like ran over to the merch, and then I looked at Kim. I'm like, Kim, please, this might be the last time, because you never know. It's been 10 years. I'm like, can I stand against the wall? Can you come with me against the wall on the floor? We'd be in the front row. So here's Elvis, and I was like, so Elvis is here, and I'm like, here, and I'm like, just to whatever, to his right. I stood there, and I'm like, and I kept texting her, please come down. Please come. The crowd's not that bad. Please come down. Please come. Because she was sitting in the back up on the seats. And she's like, are you really going to stand here all night? Leave me here? And I'm like, yes. So after Armored Saint got done, I'm like, could you please come down? It's not that bad. And some people were there. I said, she couldn't even stand in front of me because she's only like 4'10", if that. So it wouldn't have bothered me. I could just stand like this, but it didn't matter. I hate the lights. It's not just the W.A.S.P show. I hate the lights. Ace really did the same thing. What is it with these new damn lights they use? These green and red. So if you go to take a photo, not that I took a ton, but if you go to take a photo, most of the photos will come out like shit because this lights, the green and reddish, they do something to your phone. I don't know if they do it on purpose. So I hate that. I hate that lights. And I know Bill is probably going to jump on this about Elvis. Now, a lot of people love Elvis, and a lot of people hate Elvis because he's standing in front of the microphone, and you can't see him. So I was just enough to see him on the side. And I'm telling you, with this thing, this goes back to where people saying, oh, it's just the lip syncing. If you're standing where I was standing, he's singing a lot of those songs. There might be some backing tracks for like the double echoing or like you were saying. But you could see it, man. You could see him really like belting it out and doing all this stuff because I literally like watching him go, wow, I only wish
he's working hard, and he does go off for during some of the Idol stuff for the extended guitar work. He's off stage catching his breath.
Yeah, I wish he would use Elvis more. If you're gonna bring it out and you're gonna put it on the stage, jump on the damn thing and swing it.
He does.
Because if it is there's some older videos. I'm not saying because I don't know if he physically can't do it as much anymore or what, but he didn't really jump on Elvis that much. He only jumped on Elvis he was there. He kind of like shake back and forth on it, but not like jump off on it because only at the end, when he yeah. But some of the older videos, man, he's like really swinging on the damn thing, And I'm like, I would have liked to seen him swing on Elvis more. And I know, Bill's
what you're saying is you want the bass of Elvis to be replaced with a swing, so that Blackie's doing doing the hula girl on the dashboard the whole time, holding on for dear life, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Have you watched this? If you watched the videos, "Kill Your Pretty Face," if you see, there might be some around. Him up on that thing, swinging, going nuts on that thing. So if you have the prop and it's just standing there. I would just like to see him use it a little bit. Not he doesn't have to jump all the way up because I know that's like the ending thing. When he jumps all the way up and points and whatever. I get that, but jump on a little bit and swing a little bit more on it. Be kind of cooler.
Yeah. Well, I hated Elvis from general admission. I'm 5'7". I couldn't see shit, and Blackie was protected behind a wall of steel. I loved Elvis from the balcony, where I could actually see him riding it and doing physical performance with it. So I got the two different perspectives from the two shows that I was able to attend. So, Elvis up close is impressive, but it is one of the most obnoxious mic stands I've ever seen. So it's weird because
I just wish he'd get Paul Stanley's mic stand back from that Hard Rock in London.
Why did you let Paul Stanley steal your mic stand?
Yeah. The other thing is too, I love the tribute to all the guys that were in the band too when they did the thing with everybody who's played.
Very awesome.
The only thing I thought was weird. Unless I blinked it twice, how come Bob Kulick's not up on the screen when they pass everybody by?
Have you got to go somewhere, Andy? You're getting ahead of us here.
Oh, sorry.
We're not to the end of the show yet. I guess we kind of are, but yeah. No, and that's the thing is, it kind of goes back to your picture thing. Why isn't there any other pictures on the albums?
Yeah, but they show everybody else. Everybody else since the beginning is shown on the big screen.
Right.
And they play the 3 songs off the Crimson Idol. Why not show Bob? He's the guy who did the solos. Because some people are going, Doug, that's your solo. And even online, I've had to say, no, man, that's Bob Kulick. Rest in peace. And they're like, that's Bob Kulick? Yes, that's Bob Kulick. They played on the Crimson Idol. Just because Doug did it over. And I'm sorry, and Doug his sound compared to Bob Kulick is not close to what the original was. It doesn't sound at all.
Bob was absolutely unique. Did Bob play live with Blackie?
As far as I know, he never did.
Yeah,
because somebody had asked Bob about it in an interview before, and apparently Bob and Blackie didn't get along that well in the studio when they were working together, much less go out on the road together.
Yeah, it must have been those albums must have been tough to make. I know Blackie told a long story about Still Not Black Enough and, what was going on with the challenges of making that album. Again, I strongly recommend checking out that Q&A that the W.A.S.P site has posted on YouTube. Again, you'll get a really good feel for some of the questions and see if there are any other fan videos from the other VIP, go around. So we've talked about the real thing. The set closer. I wanna
be ready.
I mean, the place erupts because again, I think they picked a perfect closing song. There are several that could easily have gone to be the last song in the set on this tour, but I think that was the perfect choice. Bill?
Well, for starters, ever since he told the origin story of where he got that title from, I can't help but think of Ron Glass from Barney Miller slamming his papers down on his desk going, I want to be somebody. Anyway, like I said, it was my high point. This is where, it was the front door where I came in. I heard I Want to Be Somebody probably before anything else on the first album. And they did it just the way they did it just the way W.A.S.P should. They came out, they did a banging version of it all the way through. They did the slow down drum only chant part and really just got the crowd fired up for the end of the show. Just the way an encore closer should.
Yep. Andy?
Yep, this is what they should close with. I love this way better than I love Blind in Texas as the ending, because they used to use Blind in Texas for years as the last song. I Want to Be Somebody, like Bill says, classic. This is what brings you back to that high school time, just banging your head. I Want to Be Somebody, totally classic. Off the Hook, Wasp. This is what it's all about. Off the first album, basically, you say your first single really in the United States because remember, Animal wasn't on it. So the first video you see is "I Want to Be Somebody," right? Classic, man, all the way. Perfect ender, and that's the way it should end. Bingo.
Yeah. Again, just the vibe that night, perfect way to end. I like the structure that Blind finished the main part of the set and then into the encores and I Want to Be Somebody. That's perfection. Opening with that medley. Structure-wise, yeah, would I like all those songs to be complete and on their own? Yes. But at the beginning medley, the end of the main part of the set, the end of the concert, all where the structure was great. And ebbs and flows. The audience couldn't have left on more high than, any other song being performed as the closer, and just be walking down those stairs, at the end of the show, everyone was just like jawing, and they're still turned up to 11 from it. So from that perspective, what
did you guys notice? I mean, how people, everybody does it, even myself a little bit. I try not to do it a lot, but the videotaping or taking photos. Did you see just like a lot of people just doing the fist thing and just like getting into it? I was looking like
in San Francisco, there were a ton of people just fists in air. I didn't tape, or I think I took one photo, and even during the meet and greet, I only took 3 photos. I didn't do any video. I didn't do any audio. I just wanted the moments. I don't need to have in front of my face. I don't want to live through a freaking VR lens. And what I saw in Anaheim, there were quite a lot of people filming. And it was like, come on, put those screens down. But it got less throughout the show, so there were only a few at the end. And in San Francisco, I noticed more fists in the air than white screens of shame.
That was awesome. I couldn't believe it. Even myself, I'm like, wow, this is awesome, man. This brings you back. And that makes the whole atmosphere so cool, is that it brought me back. So I'm thinking, man, this is like the early years. You see, like you said, you saw a thing here and there, but most of the time people are just like, I'm like, I look around and like front of me, behind me, and just watching people singing. I'm like, man, this is cool. This is classic all the way. This brings me back to a very, very happy place. And I'm like, I can't believe it's been 10 years and I want to cry and I don't want it to be over with.
Okay, you and your 10 years. It's been 30 for me. 1992.
These are my first WASP shows.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Now,
and there were more people singing these WASP, the hits, the best songs, than I hear people singing at Kiss songs. I don't hear people singing along to Dr. Love, where it's a cacophony behind me of everyone is singing along. That was nuts to hear the audience participation in this. That really sums up to me how excited people were to finally get to see W.A.S.P again on American soil. And I think one of the things I've seen stressed, that if you want this to happen again, we, the fans, have the power to make it happen by calling venues, by saying, hey, you got W.A.S.P coming back. They've just been on tour. I want to see them again. You got to make the effort. The grassroots, as Blackie told us, is what has made this possible. And
that was a very impressive speech.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
And I thought about it. I thought about us. I really did, because he said about 2 years ago. You're laughing. He said about 2 years ago this started, or 2.5 years ago. When did we start the podcast?
I'm laughing because I thought it too.
And right away, I'm like, wow. Could we have really like helped along this thing about pitching it? I don't know.
And while we're at this precise moment,
we were just ahead of the public curve.
Well, but while we're at this point here, I want to give a shout out to Steve Wright from Potter Than Hell, because he's been a faithful listener to all of our W.A.S.P episodes, and to Eric Jordan, our MCP, and to Brian Harris, who were at my show. The three of us were at the same show and didn't know we were all there at the same time. But that's the W.A.S.P nation that brings forth getting this done.
Yeah, Brian Harris, I know he's a good guy. Steve is a great guy. I don't know the other fellow who you mentioned, but if he knows you, he must be decent. It was this. It was a similar thing for the guys in Nashville. One of my friends drove up from Atlanta, and he sat down on his seat, and the guy sat down next to him is another guy who we talk to every day. It was just like that. It really brought us as fans and friends back together again in person to something that, who would have thought? When we started doing these W.A.S.P episodes, Andy, we didn't think that it was just us getting off talking about the music that's part of the soundtrack to our use. And Bill, when you came in, it's the same thing. It's just reliving and just being
I was
three friends talking about music.
Yeah, but I was pushing you before we even started this. I used to say, "Come on, man, we're gonna do a W.A.S.P podcast," and you're like, "Oh, I don't know." I'm like, "Come on, let's do it." I always, Bill, I'm telling you, I would push him. He would do his FAQ, and then he kept saying, "Well, I might want to branch out a little bit." I'm like, "Let's do W.A.S.P. Let's do W.A.S.P. Let's go."
And now
I just started watching, going, man, that'd be a cool episode. That'd be a cool series to be on. So thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it, and it's been a wonderful 2 years.
Yeah, we're not done.
We're not done.
We got more
We're
albums.
not done.
We're at 2 years though. I mean, that's the thing about it is the episode where we did Crimson Idol was 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know what? I have people actually. I got messages, and stuff like, "Hey, why'd you guys stop?" I'm like, "Well, we haven't stopped.
We paused.
we put on pause, and it's nothing. It has nothing to do with whatever. We all have our own like crazy lives, and it's not like we haven't wanted.
You know
to do
what?
this.
It's been a busy year for me. I've done some work on some projects that are now done. I've finished 2 books this year. I've got ill family members in England, so some things have fallen by the wayside. But come January, we're gonna get back in with the next album, which is Dominator, right?
Shout out to my friend.
Are we going to do live at the Lyceum? Because we still haven't done that.
We are going back and doing the videos.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I get a shout out to my friend Jim. I just got these in the mail. He got off the Kiss Cruise too, and he got like a pink eye, and so him and his wife never went to the WASP show, but they sent me a Christmas card. Sent us a Christmas card, and they're like, "Hey, Andy, put these in your WASP collection." Awesome. Thank you, Jim.
Very cool. Sorry about the pink eye though. That sucks.
Oh my God, pretty bad. Yeah.
Pink eye is brutal.
Yeah, he was all upset because he really wanted to go see W.A.S.P. because he saw W.A.S.P. like when I did back in the day. Because, like I said, that Animalize tour, W.A.S.P. played like 3 or 4 shows, and that's it. It was like Pittsburgh, Springfield, Massachusetts, and New Jersey. That's it. It was like 3. I think there were 3 shows. It could have been a 4. I don't remember, but I know the 3. And that was it. So he went to that.
They had Queensryche with them by the time they got to Dayton. And they usually start there on the East Coast and work their way west. And they had already picked up Queensryche by then.
All right, there we are. We're at the end of this one. We will regroup for the next album discussion, and who knows what else we'll get to talk about.
Can I get one last squeak in here? The I had on the notes on the Real Me is it was an impressive presentation, and Mike Duda was spot on with his bass parts, and the Ox would certainly be proud and honored with the performance he did.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right.
Long live the Ox.
Without a doubt. So I want to give a big shout out to the W.A.S.P organization and everyone who's been involved in taking this show on the road in Europe and the U.S. this year. Thank you very much. I hope you get back to Dallas and get those problems sorted out for those fine folk who weren't able to get their show because of the issues that affected. But I think you will have seen from the response of the audiences that you guys are still wanted. And, we're just 3 bobbleheads talking about the things we like, some of the things. It's just random thoughts. Don't take for a moment any things that could be perceived as criticism to mean that we didn't enjoy the shows of seeing you. Because I know all 3 of us are totally thrilled with getting to see W.A.S.P live 40th anniversary tour in 2022. So thank you all, and thank you to everyone who's tuned into this episode. Remember to check out W.A.S.P socials. There's a lot of good content on there. So for now, from Bill, Andy, and myself, we'll see the rest of you fucking animals on the road. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe to us, like us, or even leave us a review. You can find us and join the conversation on Facebook.